Good morning, sweet friends. This is Gina. Welcome to the Rebookery channel. So glad you guys could join me today. I am going to show you a project that I have been working on for the last week and finally got it almost finished. And before I start doing any journaling, I wanted to kind of take you along on the journey and show you where I started with this idea and how it turned out to be what it actually is. So if you've seen my Instagram, you've seen a fabric journal that I have been posting, and that's where I'm headed with this video. So let me show you from the very beginning what gave me this idea. So my mom gave me a bunch of photos from my brother and I and this was probably 1971 to about 1981. So I took these photos and I put them on my scanner, and then I just printed them all off for a couple of reasons. One, because these are the originals, but the other reason is that some of these pictures have actually faded over time and they are hard to see. So I wanted to use pictures that were not as far along in the fading process, if that makes any sense. So, and I wanted to be able to resize them. So I just printed out, and nothing fancy here. I just actually printed this on my home printer, and I just used some glossy photo paper and put them on my scanner and got as many as I could to fit on there, and then just scanned them and printed them. So from there, I was like, what do I want to do with all these pictures? And I don't know that I really want to go through and tell a story about every one of them, because I'll be honest, I was less than 10 years old back then and I don't know all the stories. I just know things, you know, like things I remember, like that was my tricycle, or that was my front porch, or that was my favorite toy. So it got me thinking about, rather than just having these things just sit around, I could make some sort of a book where it's almost like it's just an old-fashioned photo album where I literally am just putting the picture in. Of course, I'm going to add some of my own flair and some other things, you know, some decorations and things like that. And I kind of got inspired because I have this 1976 Christmas catalog, and it's fallen apart and people had written in it, but this was my jam. My brother and I, every year when the Christmas catalogs would come out, we would, like, my mom would have to go get extra copies. She'd have to go buy extra copies because my brother and I, these were like, oh my gosh, we never went anywhere without these. We walked around with these for 6 weeks. We walked around with these and we marked everything we wanted, and we would dream about things we wanted, and we'd talk about things we wanted, and oh my gosh, like these were the best things in the world. So I want to incorporate this, and of course this one is Montgomery Ward, which if you've watched my videos before, you know that's like my jam. So I wanted to incorporate some stuff from this. So I started thinking about, what if I just made a very simple journal where it literally could just be where I tucked a photo in and said, this is my front porch, this is my backyard type of thing. So have all this, and I started thinking about what I wanted my journal to look like. So I sat down with my little planning notebook that I have here, and I started to sketch out and write out some ideas that I wanted for this journal. And one of the first things I knew is that I wanted this to be a fabric journal. I didn't know yet what kind of fabric. I was thinking more like vintage sheets, because that was a big part of, I just remember our sheets and hanging out on the line and all that stuff and always playing in them. And I wanted this to be, you know, all about the 1970s, so I wanted that whole groovy vibe. These are the things I wanted to include, so I started to sketch out what I wanted it to look like, and these are the things that I wanted to use. And I wanted this journal to have a lot of texture and a lot of fabric that had smells or that had meaning for me for that time period. I also wanted to incorporate wallpaper, because wallpaper was a big thing back in the 70s. And I wanted to incorporate a lot of these. I inherited these. My mom gave them to me, oh my gosh, a long time ago. So these are all just cards of when I was born, and birthdays, you know, when I had my first communion, when I was baptized, all that good stuff. So I had these cards and I just kind of have never done anything with them. So I wanted to use these. Then I got the idea of I wanted to use my old baby clothes because I have some old baby clothes. Whoops, that's not baby clothes. I have some old baby clothes that my mom had given me. And I've had them in my garage forever. They've just been sitting there. And so I wanted to use them because they're just sitting there. They're not doing anything. They're stained, they're ripped, they're not comfortable baby clothes. So my children, if they ever have children, would never want to use them because I know I didn't use them on my children. And you know, I kind of had this dilemma. I thought, okay, do I let them sit in a box forever and just get smelly and musty and moth-eaten, or do I put them to good use where they're actually being utilized and treasured? And ultimately, I decided I was going to cut them up, and I'm going to use them as the fabric for the journal. So I had four different outfits, and I just kind of cut them apart and tried to get I would follow the seams of the fabric and stuff and just tried to get measurable pieces that I knew I would be able to use, and then kept things like, you know, the collars, if there was any ruffles, buttons, there's some snaps. So this was a corduroy jumper, and so I kept the snaps because I tried to keep every single little piece. The only things I did not keep were the zippers, and that's because they were heavy 1970s zippers, which was probably a hazard for kid clothing today. But anyway, it was really heavy zippers, and so I didn't keep those. I got rid of those. I also wanted to use some things that my mom had given me just recently from my grandma, my great-grandma, and my great-aunt Vincey. And so let me show you. So my mom's family, my mom's father is Sicilian. His family came over from Sicily, and they lived outside of Buffalo, New York, and that's where my grandpa is from. He was actually born in the United States. He was the baby of the family. So their last name was Saragusa. And I didn't know the Saragusas very well because they were out in New York, and I'm in the Midwest. So anyway, my mom inherited a bunch of stuff from my grandma, my great-grandma Saragusa, and her daughter, which was my great-aunt Vincey. Her name was Vincey, and she was an eccentric old woman, and she was a oh gosh, in her day, she was Little Miss Society. Like, she spent a lot of time in the Bahamas. She spent a lot of time in Florida. She was a single girl. I think she did get married, but not for very long. She just kind of jet-setted all over the place. She was a world traveler. Had the most awesome clothes. And my daughter used to play dress up in Aunt Vincey's clothes. She was just kind of her, I don't know, she was just kind of her own little independent thing. So anyway, she had a lot of cool stuff. So, all right, so here's what my mom gave me. So this was like a table runner. This was my grandma's. This was another table runner. This was my great-grandma Saragusa's tablecloth. And again, guys, all of this stuff is worn and stained and has seen better days, and it has been sitting in my mom's attic. Then there were some other cool things she gave me. So this was an apron that my grandma made, and my grandma hand stitched all of this. So I love, love, love that. And I've got some aprons up on my wall, so I might put that up there. This was an apron, and I think this was my grandma's mom made this, which would have been my great-grandma Swope. And I do remember my great-grandma Swope. I actually spent a lot of time with her. And this is not feed sack material. I figured it would be because some of the stuff I've gotten from her was feed sack material, but this apron wasn't, but like little stains and stuff. And I'm thinking about, I'm repairing a quilt, And one of the quilt squares I had was from my great grandma Swope. It was one of her quilt squares, and it was made out of feed sacks. And it's, I mean, it's just like, it's threadbare. It's just so old and worn, and so I need to repair it. So I was thinking about repairing it with this apron. Anyway, so just lots of napkins. And then my Aunt Vincy, being the world traveler that she was, she would always have handkerchiefs. And so my mom had an entire box of handkerchiefs that my Aunt Vincy had my Aunt Vincy had bought. Yes, I teach school. And they had never ever been used before. And she actually bought them in the Bahamas because they had little stickers on them. By the way, this box, I love it. This box is a Permalift Brassiere box, 32 AA. Oh my gosh. I can't even imagine. 32 AA. Must be nice, because I'm not a AA. Never have. I don't even think when I was a little kid I was a AA. Anyway, sorry about that. So in here were all of these hankies that Aunt Vincy had, and I washed them all. I still need to press them, but I've washed them. There were napkins, hankies, blah, 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 all kinds of good stuff. So I want to use these, okay? So, and these are gonna make their ways into some journals, definitely. But like I said, I gotta iron them all. They are pretty wrinkly because they've been sitting on my floor. From all of that stuff, I decided to make a journal using all of those materials that I just showed you. In this journal, let me make sure I'm in frame here. This journal is going to be for all of those photos that I showed you of me when I was a kid, and it's going to be very simple. It's going to be very easy to do. I'm not going to get overwhelmed with journaling and things like that. It's literally, I'm plopping a photo down and I'm going to say, this is my tricycle. And if I remember something about it, I'll put something down. If not, that's how it's going to be. So this is a fabric journal made entirely out of those baby clothes I had. I have not bound this yet, so I thought I would show it to you before I bind it. So on the cover here, I took that little corduroy jumper. And it just happened to fit perfectly on here. Everything is very rough, messy stitching. I used pockets, so like there was a little applique piece on that jumper. I used it as a pocket. Lace from the dresses, the collars, and the edging over here, collar, some buttons, some smocking from a little purple jumper. This is an actual tag from the clothing. And then this pocket is a sleeve of one of my dresses. And the cool thing is with this dress, I actually have a picture of me at my grandma's house. We had just gone to the apple orchard and I'm sitting in a bushel of apples with this dress on. So I've got to find that picture because I definitely want that to go in here. And so then this is a big pocket right here. So the tie is a sash from a, is this, I think this is a pinafore. So this was a, like a smock, or I think it's called a pinafore that goes over a dress. So I had a red dress and then this went over it. And so that was the sash. And this is eyelet. And oh my gosh, this is like my favorite. I love eyelet. It just feels so good in my hands. So this is the sash from it. And then on the inside, this was the apple orchard dress. And it already had a pocket in it, so I was able to keep that pocket, but it was a little short. So what I did was I took the purple quilted jumper that had a lot of stains on it, and I put it on the bottom down here, and then I put the dress over top of it. Like I said, there's the ruffle, or the pocket right there, and then I made a pocket. The only thing that is not from my clothing is these little pom-poms, and they were just sitting on my desk, so I put those on. Another tag, collar. This was a sleeve again, and then yeah, so then it wraps up like this, and this is a soft spine fabric journal, which I'm super excited about using, because I've not used a soft spine fabric journal before, so I'm super excited about it. So there's the cover, and then here are the pages. Now I knew I wanted about 30 pages, like 30 sides, fronts and backs, because when like I said, I want this to be very simple. When I listed the things I wanted to put in this journal, I came up with about, you know, like 25, and I thought, okay, if I did about 30 or so, that would give me enough. It does not need to be huge. It doesn't need to be like my little journal where it's just huge. I didn't want that to be overwhelmed. I didn't want to waste anything. So I made 5 signatures that I've not sewn in, and they're pretty much all the same. I kind of followed the same pattern. So along the sides, I just took scraps of tablecloths and the napkins that had come from my Aunt Vincy, and then some of what I had left over from the clothing. I just took and I cut it down into little strips, and then just kind of collaged those along the sides. So that's a lot of what you'll see on the sides. I also used some vintage sheets that I knew we had at that time period, or we had ones that were similar during that time period. So the first page is a piece of wallpaper, and this is some new wallpaper that I just got, and it's newer, and you can tell because it has a barcode, but I am in love with this. I've been playing around with it and seeing like what kinds of media sticks to it, like, you know, pens, pencils, markers, all that good stuff. And so I've kind of done some tests. This is a sheet of a similar wallpaper, and so I did some tests to see, like, would it be good for journaling? And so on this side, the inside, a glue stick worked, so I did some little tissue paper that works. Acrylic paint worked, colored pencil worked, here's pencil, stickers were okay, ballpoint pens were perfect, Sharpies of course, crayons did really well. Markers did okay. It depended on the marker. This was, I think, just like a Crayola marker, so you can see there was just a little bit of smear when I went and rubbed my fingers over it. What didn't work was, I know highlighter didn't work. I have another sheet where I tested some more wallpaper things, and I know highlighter on that specific one didn't work. So that was this side. And then on this side, it's not glossy, but it's a different type of like, it's a different surface. So my inclination would be to use a tape runner. So I have, here's the one I normally use. Here's a little Elmer's one. Any of the tape runners that you can get, like, you know, at, oh gosh, even Walmart or something. You don't have to spend a lot of money, but that's going to give you your best stick. So let me just show you. And see, that's not coming off. And so if I put something down, that's not coming off. So I mean, I could use glue stick and I'll try it and see, but with the wet on this, because it's more of a vinyl type of material, I don't know that your wet adhesive would work. So I like to use the dry glue tape runners. So anyway, so there you go. I tried it out. All right, so wallpaper. And then this is, so I wanted to include, like I said, lots of fabric. So for this was a piece of an old curtain that I found at a thrift store. Now these were not my curtains, but I would have loved to have them because these are my favorite colors. So I just made a pocket out of this, and then I used some of those cards that I had, and those will be my little tuck spots. So let me see if I have something here. So I can tuck something here, and I can tuck something here. And my thoughts are, because I have several of these pages where I have these pockets, is that this right here will become my journal page. and it will be removable because it will be like a tag, and I'll just put it in here, and the fabric then becomes kind of the background, and it will coordinate with whatever I do my journaling on here. So this would be like a journal page, and this would be like a journal page. And then over here I just backed it with some ledger paper. Here was a card, and this was kind of a cool card because it folded out. And this is like a vellum. I had a lot of cards that were like this vellum. So I just loved the images and stuff. So I just kind of kept it the way it was. But what I did was I stitched along the bottom here. And so now it makes a pocket. So if I want, I can tuck something in. And I can do the same over here, or I could actually journal on that. Then I took a piece of cardstock, and is it one cardstock? Yeah, one piece of cardstock. And here's something new that I had done. I've not done this before. I wanted to use this storybook. My mom read to us a lot during this time period, like I said, the first 10 years of my life. And so one of the books that my mom read to us was this one right here. And I don't know where the cover is. This is the actual book. There were two of them. They kind of were companion books. And my brother and I, we had written in them and everything. And I don't know where the covers are. But anyway, so this book I wanted to somehow incorporate. But the pages were, look, I wrote, "I love you, Hickory Dickory Dock." I wanted to use these pages, but they're kind of thin, and I didn't know if they'd be able to stand up to all this fabric and stuff that I have in the journal. So what I did was I would just take a page from the book and I would stitch it to a piece of the cardstock. So now it's a little bit thicker. So this could be a journal page, this could be a journal page, and I had no intent of leaving this background. I'm just putting this here so that I can cover over it. I may paint over it, I may you know, collage over it. I may put an entirely new piece of paper over it. Same thing with the cardstock. I know that is kind of a pretty bright color. I didn't choose anything I loved because I knew I was going to cover this up. So I kind of went and chose like my most cardstock that I don't use very often because I don't want to waste anything. So I was like, well, that would be a good time to use this because I could totally see when I go to do this page, I'm going to take something and I'm going to totally cover it up. And then you won't even know that that cardstock was lime green. And then I just sewed, you know, some trim and stuff. So the pages, the signatures, are pretty thin. I didn't want this to be really bulky. So this is about as much as you're going to get in one signature. There were two signatures that I actually added a couple of extra pages. So I'll show you what those look like. And here it is right here. Okay, so this was some of my favorite fabric that I got at a fabric resale store last winter. And I actually sold some of it in my Etsy shop. I don't have a lot, so I didn't sell very much. But it's like a denim fabric, and it has these little panels. And this is reminiscent of Holly Hobby, which Holly Hobby was a huge part of me growing up. I loved Holly Hobby and Laura Ingalls Wilder and Little House on the Prairie and anything that had to do with bonnets and farm girls, and oh, I just loved it. So I cut out this panel and I just put a glue stick right down in the center because that's where it's going to fold. And then I went and I stitched around it, but I left some of it open. So like this is a pocket right here, and I don't know if this will fit in, but we'll see. Oh, it might. So my thinking is, maybe if I could get it in there. There we go. My thinking is I'll use this as like a pocket, and I'll put a journal card or one of those pages like I talked about, the removable pages. I'll put it in here, and then I could journal over here. And then I just cannot get away from envelopes. So I put some envelopes in, so it's like a little fold out, and I can stick a tag or something down in here because there's the windows. So when I did this, I kind of had in my mind what picture, like what photograph I would put with these. So I did two of these. There's this one, and then I did another one that is a farm scene kind of, because I kind of had an idea of what picture I wanted to go on there. And so then this is just the back, and more of my dress and tablecloth. For the wallpaper, even though this was newer wallpaper, I tried to use colors that I knew were 1970s-ish colors. So a lot of greens, a lot of oranges, a lot of golds and browns in this journal. And when I first got my clothing out and I started to look at it, I was like, oh my gosh, this is so disgusting. Like, it's red, white, blue. I had like 2 or 3 things that were red, white, and blue, and then I had this one purple jumper, and I was like, well, how in the world will those ever go together? And the more I worked with them, the more I found a way for them to go together, and now I look at them and I'm like, oh my gosh, they were perfect for each other. The red, white, and the blue works perfect with the lavender, and even though I have little pops of green and yellow, it just all seemed to work. And isn't that like total 1970s? Like this whole mishmash of color is just total 1970s. And of course, red, white, and blue was a big thing back then because of the, 1976 and all that good stuff and patriotism. So this definitely grew on me. Those colors grew on me. And so again, I just stitched along the bottom. So now this becomes a little pocket, and I could just stick something in there. So this was kind of an interesting page. This is another piece of my favorite old fabric. This was a piece of denim, and it had farm scenes on it. And I wanted to keep the fabric so that you could totally see it. So I wanted something like a pocket so that I could tuck in my removable pages. So I used a transparency, and I just happened to have an old school transparency of the 3 Billy Goats Gruff, which was a story that my mom would read to us all the time. So I thought, well, that is perfect. And with the farm scene and everything, I kind of have an idea of what I want, what photograph I want to go on that particular spread. So here's this one. Vintage sheets on this one. Here's the other panel from that fabric. So for this one, this was a little farmer boy, and again, I kept this open, and actually this whole side is open right here, so I'll be able to tuck something in like that if I want. I zipped this with a stitch, so this won't open, but that's okay because I have plenty of space to journal over here. And then for the envelope this time, I left it open right here so you could tuck something in. And this was a Fisher-Price school desk, and these were the cards that came with it, and then you would put your little plastic letters in. It had a little chalkboard. I had this, I played with this all the time, so I definitely wanted to incorporate this. And so since this was rain and farm, I thought that would go together. Here's another card where I left the inside open and stitched along the bottom. And then this was some buttons from that pinafore, that smock that I had. And then the last signature. So Raggedy Ann and Andy were a big part of my growing up. I loved Raggedy Ann and Andy. So this was a pillowcase that I found at a thrift store a while ago and just have held on to. I wanted to use it as fabric, so I used transparencies as pockets, and you can see here's where I incorporated like the snaps from that jumper, and so I'll put in another removable card, and that will be my journal card. And I can do the same thing over here. And then this was collar, I think, from the, or I don't know what this was, the front, the yoke, I think, of the front of that jumper, and then, like I said, the buttons, or the snaps right here. And then on the back, this is just a piece of paper I had laying on my desk. And then the cool thing about this is I left this open, so now this can become a pocket too. So pocket here, I can journal here, and then pocket here. So this has lots of places for journaling. And then just stick this back in, and yeah. So then these guys today, my plan is I have a lot of things I have to do today. I have to go to the post office and I need to vacuum and all kinds of good stuff. But my plan is to get this bound today, and it just kind of goes like that and like that, and then this just wraps around. And I want to get started making some journal spreads. I already have some ideas of ones I want to do, and I think I'm going to go back down and see my mom again on Friday. So I might pick up some more pictures while I'm down there. And she has some quilting supplies that she has found in her attic, so I'm going to be picking those up, which is always exciting. And then once I play around in this a while, I need to get started on my next journal release, which I have 10 journals. If you've been watching my Instagram, I've kind of been posting some things. Some are homebodies. I have a few homebodies left over. I have a new design that I cannot wait to show you guys. And so, yeah, I'm really excited about that, but it's going to take me a while because the covers are done. I just don't have the pages done yet. So, and I don't have them bound, but once I get this out of my system, I'll be able to get working on that. And then I've got some new, wallpaper that I would like to turn into wallpaper packs, and it's actually de-smelling right now. It kind of came in smelling a little musty, so I've got a little technique I'm using on it to hopefully get some of that smell, that musty smell out. So yeah, I think I need to go get some more coffee, and I think I'm going to get started binding this and take care of all my chores and all that good stuff. So until next time, my friends, keep yourself healthy, keep yourself happy, do something creative, and I will talk to you soon. Bye.